Partiamo, d'accordo? E mi dovete perdonare le...
All right, let's start. I apologize, but I have to read. I am confessing this straight away. So it is a real honor and a very special emotion for me today. I already said this in the Palladio room before. But here in this room, there is something extra. This is my last day as a president of Club Degli Orafi and my first day as president of Confindustria Federorafi. It is really a big emotion for me to be here, to talk to you, and to introduce this extremely interesting meeting that Club Degli Orafi every year proposes to talk about data, to talk about the sentiment, and to cast a glance to commodities, which for us are our fundamental raw materials. I would like to thank Councillor Massimo Bitonci for being here today, and the participation of institutions in moments like this one, moments when entrepreneurs get together, the fact that there are institutions that listen to them and manage to understand their needs and help them, help the entrepreneurs in their activities. So this is really an important support, especially in a special moment like this one. Vicenza Oro has chosen a very powerful theme this year: people, products, places. 3 words that enclose and encrypt the very essence of our industry. Jewelry is based on competencies, traditions, human identities. So P as product, because Italian jewelry is a mixture of quality, innovation, competencies. Places, because clusters and our geographical areas are our competitive matrix. They make us unique in the world. As far as gold jewelry is concerned, we're deeply convinced of that. This is one of the most important clusters for this kind of production in the world. And whenever we bring our Italian nature, our geographical identity abroad, we always feel very, very proud. Today, I would like to add a 4th P, perspective. That is a capability of looking at the future, interpreting complex scenarios, transform uncertainty into opportunities. And that is exactly why we're here. Club Degli Orafi is a platform of collective intelligence to the service of the value chain. Entrepreneurs need clarity. Entrepreneurs need to understand where markets are going, what is happening to metals, which strategies are applied by their competitors, what can be done to remain competitive. So let me tell you the following. We are here because we believe in the industry of Italian jewelry. It is able to innovate, resist, evolve. We believe in the quality of our people, the force of our geographical areas, the strength of our products, and we believe that information, qualified and shared information, is the first step to build the future. Thank you very much to all of you. I wish you all profitable proceedings, and please take note of what you're going to listen to right now. Thank you very much. Please stay here with us. Yes, I'm going to take notes. Well, allow me to say the following. I would like to thank you. Working with you has been a privilege, and I've been very lucky because you brought competence, capability to listen, to determination. This is all what you have brought to the club. And it has been a present that I've received for me working with you, because you are a real woman and a real friend. Thank you very much for all what you have done and for all what you're going to do in your new role. And I wish you all the best. Thank you. Well, after this very emotional moment, I would like to invite Councillor Bertonci, who's the Councillor for everything. And he's here wearing the hat of the Board for Regional Economic Development. President Squarcialupi hinted to this. When institutions participate not only to the opening events, where of course their presence is greatly appreciated, but also to some technical meetings, you prove that the difficulties encountered by entrepreneurs are relevant for you. You want to listen to what they tell us, what we tell them, and therefore thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I would like to thank Club Orafi. Well, I believe that if you have a public role, you must know about the industry where you work. So I try to learn as much as possible about the different industries I come to terms with. I also have a double role, because until 2 days ago, I was the Vice Minister for Enterprises and Made in Italy. So, of course, I know Vicenza Oro, I know the jewelry industry. And for 1 month, I've been the Councillor for Productive Activities. And I have some economic mandates, of course. So congratulations for this beautiful fair, which is unique. The figures that were mentioned during the opening are really amazing. 1,500 exhibitors, if you include also the side events, like the one for gold machinery and new technology, something very important for this industry. The Vicenza export, you know that several clusters are represented in Italy. Italy has several clusters, but focusing on the Vicenza cluster, and these clusters in Italy are made up of many micro companies. 95% of the Italian companies are micro companies, i.e. companies with less than 9 employees. So networks and clusters play a fundamental role, because competition would be impossible against large companies without the synergies that develop in a cluster. We have 15 clusters in Veneto, 22 innovation networks. This is another very important project developed in the Veneto region. Your industry has a vocation for export, since 90% of all what is produced in this industry is sold abroad. Vicenza has a share of 20%, worth 2.5 billion euro export. We're talking about big figures, not only for the GDP of our region, but also for our national GDP. We know that there are many problems. We have heard about tariffs, even though maybe tariffs are not the #1 problem. When working for the Ministry for Enterprises, I realized that also other countries have tariffs, sometimes even higher tariff barriers than we do have. So there are other different problems which are related to unfair competition, for instance. We talk about made in Italy products, but the Italian-sounding products are a significant issue. These are attempts at emulating the Italian product and calling it in an Italian way. And this is ubiquitarian, from ceramic tiles to machinery to gold jewelry to fashion items, textiles. We also hinted to retail. We shall soon pass a new regional trade law. Neighborhood trade is an extremely delicate topic. And I'm sure you agree with me by saying that trading generalistic products is over. You can't trade general products. You have to specialize. That's the future of trade. And in the jewelry industry, service, specialization, after-sale assistance are fundamental. A customer goes to a shop when the environment is pleasant, when the shop assistants are useful and can be trusted. That's the only way to compete with online trade. Italy does not have a vocation to the production of items that can be produced in emerging countries in huge quantities. So we have to go on focusing on specialization, the specialization of your wonderful workshops and companies, leading to products, jewels, that are made in Italy products, and their aesthetic look confirms that. I mean, made in Italy means something to consumers all over the world. There's a light in their eyes when you talk about made in Italy products. And the Veneto region supports this industry. We are working on incentives at regional level as well, on collaterals. Public collaterals play a fundamental role. During the COVID pandemics, we allocated 250 billion euro in terms of public collaterals. Without public collaterals, we would not have experienced that 8-9% recovery that took place after the COVID pandemic. There is no credit without collaterals, and all companies need state-provided collaterals. Banks are also supported by state collaterals, and the Veneto region also provides collaterals that can be put together with the state collaterals. We will work hard to improve this even better, and we will also provide some funding and financing tools, because sometimes our companies do not manage to obtain a credit from a bank because the credit merit evaluation is becoming more and more difficult. So our region is going to support our craftsmen, our artisanal companies, to have access to credit. We know that Saturday and Sunday are the two pivotal days for the fair. Congratulations for all what you do, with the full awareness that activities like yours, characterized by design, by circularity, gold is a circular product. Thanks to your professionalism, thanks to your farsightedness, I am sure that you will be able to overcome this difficult moment, which is going to be only temporary. Thank you very much, and congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have actually hinted already to some topics that we're going to address today, like circular economy, which is one of the topics we're going to address. Right. I do not want to anticipate too much. I would like to thank YEG, the Italian exhibition group, for giving us the opportunity of analyzing figures together with you and investigating the present sentiment. And thank you very much also to ICE, the Italian Foreign Trade Commission, an extraordinary partner for Italian companies. And I would like to leave the floor to Mr. Mazzini, that is the Director of Consumer Goods at the Italian Foreign Trade Commission. Thank you very much. Just a few words and a few thanks to Club Degli Orafi for organizing this event and in general for all what you do. Fairs are an important meeting point, not only for business and trade negotiations, but also to meet, to learn, to disseminate information. And this is very important also for us. Our agency has been working for a long time with the Italian exhibition group. This year we have 550 delegates coming from 65 different countries. And this cooperation works well. We're very happy, but this is also an opportunity for us to get to know better the companies, the design, the technologies, the expression of Made in Italy that we promote through our offices in the whole world. And being able to listen to entrepreneurs and listening to the kind of knowledge companies have is something fundamental for us. Otherwise, our efforts without the knowledge of the content would not be as effective. We have here the director of the Houston office from the United States. We have a delegation of approximately 100 entrepreneurs coming from the US. So we pay special attention to entrepreneurs, and hopefully this can be useful to you, but acquiring more knowledge is very useful also for all of us. So thank you very much again, and I wish you all the best. Thank you. Dr. Fusaro, would you like to stand up? Dr. Fusaro is an important reference for all companies interested in the US market. How long are you going to stay here for? Until Sunday, right. So take advantage of having him here. The booth is in Hall 7. Any other colleagues? Any other trade analyst? Beirut, Casablanca, Argentina, Bucharest. So whoever is interested in a specific contact, and Sofia. That's interesting. That will soon enter the Eurozone. So Hall 7, at the bottom of Hall 7, on the left. Right, let's now start with our agenda. Thank you very much to all the institutions again, and let's leave the floor to Daniela Corsini, Senior Economist of the Research Department of Intesa Sanpaolo, an expert in geopolitical scenarios. And, you know, we tend to hear big names of geopolitical analysts. She is a very discreet person with amazing skills. She's able to put together scenarios that then become reality. And I do not want to steal any more time away from you. So, Daniela, what should we expect?
Good afternoon. Well, let's get started with good news. From the point of view macroeconomics, the scenario is positive according to the last statistics dating back to December. And the growth of the world economy will be +3 over the next years. The United States are also on the positive, and they will grow by 2% in the next 2 years. From 1 to 1 to 1 to 4 in Europe, and Europe is about 0.8%. So this is positive. Inflation is under control in nearly all areas. European Central Bank is at 2% as a rate, and it will remain like that, whereas the US Bank probably will cut the rates after June with a new president of the Federal Reserve. So all in all, the macro scenario is positive. The dollar, the American dollar, is stable, and we hope it could continue to be remain within the 118, 119 in the next 2 years. Now on to the bad news. First of all, geopolitics. Things are getting more and more complicated. This is an unprecedented historical moment. Probably you read that in November, the White House published a strategic document for national security, which is completely changing the foreign policy of the US. This is an upside-down map because the US is adopting a different policy. The new doctrine, which has been ambitiously defined down road at Donald Trump and Monroe, and that implies that the US will concentrate in the Western Hemisphere. We speak about hemispheres. So the world is increasingly fragmented, divided into influence areas, and apparently a second Cold War is starting. That has a major impact on strategic alliances and in terms of availability of raw materials. If the world is more fragmented, where the Western Hemisphere should be more independent from as the Eastern Hemisphere, we should reconceive all supply chains and also the financial setup. De-dollarization is a much used word, and trust in the currency, because the currency should be reliable, and the dollar want to continue to be that, but the US want to be more independent in the supply chain. That's why we had this focus, which was very violent in Venezuela. Many underestimated the impact of that. I was one of them. There was a wake-up call connected with Venezuela. Now we are speaking of Greenland, Iran, and the tensions between China and Taiwan. That means that the dollar will remain stable. No depreciations will happen. The idea is to strengthen the US and its economy. Probably the dollar will remain stable. But the gold, which had a rallying, accelerating from August onwards, that was still consistent with macroeconomic dynamics, with a potential cut of interest rates by the Fed. But the present president stated that they want to resume the expansion policy. So we are above 4,000. The profits at the end of the year is connected to that, and the new document on U.S. national security has really reshuffled the cards. The gold is speeding up, and it will continue in the next months. You know, the financial markets are in a panic, and there is also some cynicism. Many traders and investors, indeed, are begging on the increase of gold. Now, the debasement trading will continue until signs of reverse trend are there. So probably gold price won't be corrected, but the room for increase is limited. By the end of the month, we'll get to know the name of the new president of the Federal Reserve, so less stress on monetary policies, and probably after the shock of Venezuela, probably they will aim at stabilizing the balance. According to the press, apparently we are getting to the Third World War. This is not so. Indeed, the US is not generating chaos. They just want remodulate the balances. Indeed, there will be some positions consolidated, so that will relieve the stress on the markets. The central banks were really the ones guiding this increase from 22 onwards, cooling down of purchases. The orange bar refers to purchases. It's positive, but probably at the end of the year there will be less than the years 22, 23, 24, which were record. Also in 22, after the invasion of Ukraine, has been slowing down, and also China is slowing down purchases. What is guiding the market and the prices are financial markets. On the right, value and then volume ETFs are still buying gold. Many investors believe that the share of gold in the portfolio continues to grow. In the past, gold was sold when it was more than 5 or 10% of the portfolio to keep a balance among the assets. After the rallying and the realignment at world level, so they are letting it go. And that indeed strengthens the trading activities. Some investors, notwithstanding the record prices, they are entering the market because they are afraid of losing the fear of missing out the increases. So they that's why gold is going up above all the fundamentals, and everything is guided by speculation. These are the World Gold Council data. You will be supplied, you will receive these slides. In green, strong increases, that's the financial side, ETF, ingots, currency. Red is gold and jewelry, physical things. So the demand is shrinking. A few years ago, jewelry was about 50% of world demand. In the past trimester, it's 34%. I think that it has never been in such a low level. In the very long term, maybe gold could continue to grow. In the short term, after the first trimester, we'll have a correction. Average price about $4,600 in the first quarter. And then in the very long term, probably there will be a trend on the increase. And also vis-a-vis the stock exchange, because the fragmentation of the world, expansion, inflation, which is higher than the previous decades, these are still present. Plus, geopolitical uncertainty. Anytime we are looking for a new balance, one likes to have gold in the portfolio. For that reason, even though we expect a correction, we don't think that the gold could go back to the levels of 1-2 years ago, not even in the next future. So probably the price will go down on the year average. But in the short term, we are in the hands of financial markets because there is a rush to price increases. So there might be new records in the next days and weeks. The range is $4,000 to $6,000. That is 30% above present levels. But if the White House continues to put the president of Fed under pressure, this is unprecedented. This never happened in the past. Then using the militaries, it's not like action movies. I mean, Iran was seen in the Mission Impossible, but Venezuela was never mentioned. So the White House is more creative than Hollywood. That's the reason why probably we could reach 6,000. Hopefully not, because that would mean that new wars are there or tensions on the macroeconomics. Daniela, you said, I mean, if we are at 6,000, well, these peaks will go down rapidly. Yes, very rapidly. Then, when these high prices cycles are added up and guided by the financial markets, then the correction is very, very fast. I mean, the rise is very rapid, and the same goes for the downfall. And many years will pass before gold reaches levels like 5,000 and so on. It will remain above 4,000, but probably in a more stable way. Thank you.
Grazie mille.
Thank you very much, Daniela. A very interesting picture casts new lights and things. Sometimes the news are not able to make us understand the complexity. I mean, you are at the research department. We have been collaborating for 21 years, and so we are no longer minor of age. What about the performance? Indeed, you have a very special observatory. You have a very capillary network to gather information, retail, wholesale, with your traders and managers. You can have a glimpse on hundreds of companies. Yes, more than 100,000 companies, quite an amount, so your statistics are right.
Cerchiamo di concentrarci, diciamo,
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Italy. As you said, what are the expectations that we have? We expect a real acceleration, as you see in the chart. Then many investments are there, in particular the completion of the resilience and recovery plan. Consumption are resuming. They were really absent, but since the stage is over with indeed more purchasing power, that could probably improve the purchasing power of families again. What about what is negative? As you see to the left, that is international exchanges and foreign trade. Laura, you stated that we try to accomplish our statistics with the indications coming from our colleagues who speak to companies. On the right, we see the supply side. What about this 0.8% growth? What are the sectors which are favored on others? This is a survey we conducted in December. Some said that the sales might increase in 26 on 25. Others say that the sales will go down. Some sectors, such as biomedical, pharmaceuticals, electronics, tourism, still drive this growth. These are the sectors most affected in the positive by digital transformation. On the other hand, we have those who expect to have a drop in sales. This is the fashion sectors and the retail sector. International trade is going down. This is due to the tariffs in particular. That was a very fast phenomenon. All in all, Italian exports to the US before the Trump era, this is an average tariff on all the exported goods, which was 2.5%. In a few months, we have 14, 15% depending on the different negotiations. That, but indeed has as an effect less exports to the US, but less exports from China to Europe. That might mean that excess in supply by China might translate in more competition against our companies. So a new picture of international markets is coming out. Again, another survey we conducted, we asked our colleagues who deal with internationalization. We see the most interesting markets for exports. Ranking first, we have the Gulf countries, then India. Note that the interest to European markets is increasing, which in the past were considered as a market with less potentials. Now they are getting more interesting for the companies. You see the US are ranking last in this list. I mean, last year the US were at the second place in the answer to the same question. That means that this is the impact of US trade policies. The reason why companies are interested in different markets are varied. Potentials for growth, and the US is still an interesting market, and indeed the presence of consumers who can spend a lot of money. This is a very guiding element which has an impact on the positioning of different countries in the list of interesting countries. Companies are saying that some needs are emerging. I mean, in order to face this change, there are new needs. So companies are looking for new customers and new markets. This is a phenomenon which affects the different industries in different ways. They need to have a strategic analysis conducted by their advisors. Indeed, services before the issue of attending a fair exhibition is considered or taken on board. Another important element which will be assessed is that of investments. These refer to Italy. As you see, in the last quarter of 25, we see that investments are going up. And this is important because this gives you the idea of in what companies invest. For example, machinery and technology, which is good to support and improve the competitiveness of our companies. What are the targets for investments? First of all, artificial intelligence. Ranking second is cybersecurity. That means that companies are well aware that investing in artificial intelligence must be supported by investments in security. Then we have machinery and equipment, generation of energy, the need to diversify investments according to the size of the company. What about the gold industry? This chart has been updated last October. In the medium term, we can appreciate the different events. There has been a rebound after COVID, but also the reaching a high levels. So the industry had growth rates which were very high. In the first 10 months, as a matter of fact, the sales are going down by 5%, as much as 13% for the production. In the first quarter of the year, sales were stable. The blue columns indicate the performance of sales in the first quarter. It was stable. Then a drop in production goes down. After May, things indeed get more and more acute. This is partly physiological, but there are also structural reasons for that. This is well connected to what we heard about the price of gold. That has an impact on the world demand for gold jewels. These are World Gold Council data. In the first 9 months, there was a drop by 18% for gold jewels. On the right, you see a chart showing the impact of the price of gold on demand. End of 24, first 3 quarters of 25, a higher price of gold indeed was coupled by a drop in the demand. That was even more evident in markets which are more sensitive to price, such as India and China, which are about half of the world demand for gold jewels. In the comparison between 24 and 25, that phenomenon was even worse in 25. What is the position of Italy? What about competitiveness of Italy? Italy is still a leader in terms of export, more than 8 billion of exported goods in the first 9 months of 25, and a drop of 17%. But be careful in interpreting that number. Increased exports to France and the Netherlands rank third. At the same time, they increased imports. That means that that market is a hub. So this minus 17% should take on board the Turkish phenomenon. Turkey is still the first market for the first 9 months of 25, 1.7 billion. But that means that this phenomenon is downside. A good performance of exports to Switzerland, Arab Emirates, and a drop to the US. And the role of the Netherlands is important. So if we remove the impact of the Turkish boom, in 24, without Turkey, exports would have increased by 1%. In the first 9 months, we would not have a minus 70%, on the contrary, a plus 4%. The drop would not be minus 29%. As a matter of fact, it's a 19%. That means the blue bars are without Turkey. Then some revisions of agreements were announced. So that is useful to understand the issue of earlier deliveries or a new attitude to the US market. All in all, there is a minus 70% exports to the US, still with Turkey ranking first, US are ranking fourth, and they are 8% of the total Italian exports. Then the different territories, the gold clusters. In the first 3 places, we have Arezzo, Vicenza, and Alessandria, which is Valenza Po. Arezzo used to be the most important province in the trading to Turkey. Without Turkey, the export would be stable. Vicenza is plus 6%. That would be 10% plus Turkey. in particular thanks to the sales to Emirates, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and the lower reduction in the US. Valenza, which is Alessandra, increased its exports to Switzerland and less exports to islands. That shows that that is a very specific cluster where the goods for the luxury maisons is located, the luxury brands. That may help us understand this change in the role of different geographical areas. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much for providing us with a very precise description of a period where it is difficult to be precise. So sometimes we make jokes when we say the situation is complex and uncertain. In the last 5 years, every single year we have said that the situation is complex and uncertain. I mean, tough life for entrepreneurs who have to develop strategies in a complex, uncertain scenario. And now I would like to give the floor to Augusto Ungarelli. Augusto, past president of Club Degli Orafi, and right now you are also past president of Vendorafa, where you have opened up to many foreign markets. Maybe that was a period characterized by less complexity and uncertainty, but there's almost always complexity and uncertainty, certainly. Now we've reached amazing peaks, but you know what it means to develop a strategy when nothing is clear. However, with our 10th survey, we've seen that the sentiment of entrepreneurs, and many of you have actually provided us with a more precise description of the situation. And we've seen that not all entrepreneurs are pessimistic. So which is the truth? Well, entrepreneurs cannot be pessimistic individuals, otherwise they would never be entrepreneurs. And I believe that entrepreneurs are proving that, notwithstanding all what we have heard about regarding the prices of raw materials, nevertheless, the value of entrepreneurship, and I would like to thank the President for quoting a word referring to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs believe in what they do, and that's really what has led to the situation which we're going to analyze in the figures. And that's the added value of the economy that brings our country around in the world, notwithstanding all what we have to put up with. I mean, maybe you remember that some time ago people we were viewed as people that had a different color hair. But exactly during events like this one, and I remember events in Vicenza, characterized by the Gulf War, as we were here in Vicenza, the attack to the World Trade Towers occurred. I mean, we have gone through moments when the future looked extremely bleak, but if we're here today talking about figures and listening to entrepreneurs' opinions, well, this is because entrepreneurs believe in their work, and they have the capabilities and the skills to tackle every possible difficulty. Think about the COVID pandemics. Very few had expected the recovery that we saw. In our world, the Italian craftsmanship, the Italian industrial production have proven to the world that once again, Made in Italy is not just a slogan, it is not just words, it is a concrete reality. So I would like to thank the president of Club Degli Orafi. She is still the president of Club Degli Orafi today, so I'm very thankful to Cristina for believing in the club, first of all, and Unoaerre has been part of the Club Degli Orafi ever since its inception, and Cristina has provided the club with energy. And I'm really keen with this institution, and I've really learned a lot from Club Degli Orafi. I've had the opportunity to visualize levels of excellence that have allowed me, a provincial entrepreneur, to see different scenarios, to exchange ideas with other colleagues, to do all what Cristina has summarized in a word I totally share. Belief. We believe in our work, we believe in the future of our industry and in our reality, which is not virtual reality, it's concrete reality. Right, let's now talk about the sentiment. I'm not going to present figures, I'm going to talk about the sentiment. We have already heard wonderful presentations of statistics. Of course, I'm learning from them, but I can't compete against them. But let me tell you what I have investigated, notwithstanding all what we can read in the newspapers or we can listen to at meetings like this one. It is important to know what entrepreneurs really do think. And we've asked entrepreneurs several questions, and we have received their answers, which are of course debatable, but they give us a signal. So the starting question was, which is going to be the turnover in 2026 versus 2025? These were questions that were asked in December 2025. And as you can see, one company out of 5 envisages growth, an increase in the turnover and the revenues in 2026. This is entrepreneurs' sentiment, of course, but it is a very important message. No company in the medium-large category declared that they expect their turnover to decrease. These are production companies, manufacturing companies, medium to large companies. Medium to small companies also include some craftsmen and traders. One company out of 3 expects increasing revenues, and this is an important claim. But in this slide, we find another important claim that is represented in orange here. And yellow, focus on the yellow, stability. Companies expect stability. Stability expectations are an extremely positive element because they derive from years of growth in this industry. After the COVID pandemic, this industry has been increasing, has been growing. So stability is already a very positive element. It has a very positive value. It is a good sentiment. However, where do entrepreneurs expect revenues to come from? Foreign markets are the #1 source. Foreign markets that are relevant to manufacturers. And the expectation here is twice as significant as the number of entrepreneurs predicting a reduction, a decrease. However, one company out of 10 also envisages growth also in the domestic market. A type of sentiment which is totally different from the sentiment coming from the manufacturing medium-large companies. Then, of course, we also asked, will you invest in 2026? And also in this case, there is a good propensity to investing that is transversal to all different company sizes. So companies are predisposed to investing independent of their size. And this is very important because especially for medium-large companies and for small companies, this means that notwithstanding all what we have heard, companies are going to invest. They will be active. They will increase the amount of money they're going to invest, and they will maintain the stability that has been achieved after the years of significant growth. Specifically, 30% of all companies believe that in 2026 more money will be invested compared to 2025. We have then asked, where is the money going to flow? Where is investment needed? And the first three lines here are significant. Evolution of internal demand, evolution of external demand, and image strengthening. In other words, international and national trade. Tax incentives, available liquidity, competitive context, yes, but internal and domestic and international demand are the most important catalyzers for investment. This opens up a scenario that we're going to debate in detail later on. If foreign demand has to evolve, we need to go abroad, and we have to think about internationalization and all the support that is going to be needed as a consequence of the commercial policies that have been identified in the previous presentations, not only talking about the US. We will have to consider, apart from the North American market, which is a big export destination, we will also have to consider alternatives, which means investing not only money, but also investing in structures, know-how, competencies. So this is a topic that is going to come back also later on. Which factors will affect the evolution of investment in the different compartments? So the evolution of domestic demand will have to be linked to trade. This is even more important than production. However, production has a significant target in terms of foreign demand. The same is true for image. This means that in both sectors it is necessary to innovate with an image which is adequate, appropriate for the new strategies, for the new markets, for future opportunities. This is also related to the fact that the competitive context, which is in the realm of production, because if you compete, you have to come to terms with foreign productions, competition coming from countries with low labor cost, and it is a significant element, very significant. So, investing to compete. Production will have to invest significantly with this kind of prospect, which is the realistic prospect of having to come to terms with very aggressive competitors. Let's have a look at the most important difficulties that companies will have to come to terms with. Well, of course, the cost of raw materials. This is what we have in our industry. Diamonds and gemstones go up and go down in the different years, but gold had never reached such a high level as we witness today. So, the possibility of products to reach the final consumer has to overcome several barriers, such as the instability, the continuous increase in the price of raw materials, and the worsening of domestic demand, the reduced number of high-spending consumers. In other words, the domestic market has some difficulties because demand is decreasing, but also because high-spending customers are disappearing. Maybe they do not find our country as attractive as they used to find it in the past because of foreign exchange, because of organized activities that would bring foreigners to our country. Maybe today they go to China to the advantage of Chinese competitors. This could have actually been an explanation for the situation. However, there's one point that has resurfaced. This is something we've always paid attention to in our surveys. And here it is again, finding labor, finding specialized labor, tariffs, cash difficulties. They are all ranking equal. This means that, okay, we need workforce. This is fundamental for manufacturing companies. The introduction of tariffs has had the same value as the lack of labor. So from a structural viewpoint, when I talk about labor, I mean the generational change, because competencies are exiting the production and competitive system and they need to be replaced. Or it means maintaining a production level which is adequate to the new situation. The introduction of tariffs, and specifically it is the US tariffs that have triggered off a complete disalignment of the situation we were used to. Italian companies going to the US knew they had to pay custom duties. The same was true for China. Now things have been changed, and therefore it has been necessary to review our price lists, because that was absolutely necessary. So cashing difficulties, worsening of the American demand, but the number one factor is the level and the trends of the costs of raw materials. This is the real problem that all companies recognize. We have also tried to understand which are the difficulties that companies have to overcome in the different fields of activity. And once again, both trade and production indicate that the cost of raw materials are the number one issue. Then they quote the worsening of domestic demand, the reduced number of high-spending consumers. This is important for trade. And in the same way, and as a consequence of this, this is important also for production, because if you do not have such important customers, the high-spending customers, there is a possibility that you may not be able to sell your production. So it is a problem that affects both trade and manufacturing. But it is clear that foreign competition, finding labor, and tariffs increase the problems, the number of problems for production, for manufacturing. So the investment that we saw before that will be enacted may be used to fill these gaps. Foreign competition, this means competing on certain markets with all those that are already there or will come in the future. Labor, if you create the means to reach new markets, if you innovate in terms of improving the competitiveness of your products, then the difficulty resides in what production has to do. The worsening of the North American demand, the worsening of the Asian demand are all elements that in one way or another require a greater capability of penetrating foreign markets. Another interesting analysis that we have carried out, if you were here in June, you probably saw the data, the blue data in this comparison. Already back in June, we asked to describe the different difficulties. But here, look at the two colors. In 2025, red, the cost of raw materials was one of the elements causing such a difficulty. The same is true for the reduced number of high-spending consumers. And the same is true for the worsening of the European demand, as well as foreign competition. So these elements compared to June have all become worse. So the perception in December is that these factors have worsened compared to June. So there has been an increase in the difficulties. Finding qualified labor is once again a very important element. This is, in our opinion, the offspring of the necessity of generational exchange, but also having to tackle production in a different way. A comparison between June and December regarding the first line, which is the cost of raw materials, shows that in June, euro had a price of 90 euros per gram. At the end of December, it is 118 euro per gram. So this worry, this increase in the cost of the raw material, leads to greater instability in production and trade. In June, maybe the situation was different because everybody was focusing on the American tariffs. So we have tried to see what is the sentiment of entrepreneurs regarding the American market. And this is the answer to our question. Which is your reaction to American tariffs? I look for new customers in different markets. Easier said than done. So looking for new customers in other markets, fine. To reach a new market, as you probably can teach me, you need to have competencies, knowledge, operational facilities, and there might be some tariffs in a foreign market. And local production. Local production can sometimes be characterized by competitiveness based on price. Another interesting item is the destination of investment. So it is easy to say we have postponed our investment in the US. If you postpone your investment in a market that you do not know how it is going to evolve, and our ICE friends will probably help us clarify this, well, the Supreme Court will decide, but the most recent events we've heard about, referring to the North American market also in terms of distribution, are not particularly attractive for companies. So it is necessary to find alternative channels. And it's not that easy. So you need many different competencies, a lot of money invested. Yeah, the reputation of Italian companies and made in Italy can be of help, but only up to a certain point, because it is clear that before selling in a given country, you need to know that country, you need to know the distribution network, the structural potential for business. In other words, in the end, at the beginning we said the sentiment is positive. I can still tell you that the sentiment is still moderately positive with one fundamental fact. There is the awareness of the complexity of the present moment. Entrepreneurs are aware of this, and they're aware of the need for a transformation, which is dictated not only by the price of raw materials, but the price of raw materials has rediscussed certain balances. It was obvious that we were selling to the United States. They used to write orders at the Vicenza Fair. They used to be paid for at a later time. But now entrepreneurs have to take on the risk. And for sure, risks are a complexity that should be made available to the companies. Otherwise, companies will truly have an operational problem. I believe, however, that this complex challenge for the entrepreneurial world, look at the COVID pandemic, that was the proof of the fact that Italian companies are ready to restart with enthusiasm, with elan, with quality. This is not just a wish, it is a certainty. I believe that also in this industry, of course you have to solve problems day after day, but you need a positive approach. And you must be confident. Thank you very much, Augusto, for providing us with this very precise picture. You have mentioned trade several times. You have mentioned the domestic market and retail. So don't forget that tomorrow at 2 p.m. in this room, there will be a meeting with the President Stefano Andreis, Confcommercio Federpreziosi, with Claudio De Nobili, and Sara, of course. Sara Giusti, who will provide us with very interesting data, unexpected data really, because we managed to find something really interesting for retail, thanks to the research department of Intesa Sanpaolo. So don't forget to come back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. And with Sara, we will also make an instant poll, trying to get our audience involved. Anyway, last but not least, Mr. Luca Benvenuti, thank you very much for being here with us. We wanted you here because you represent two large companies, Unoaerre, but also Timet, that has been a leader in the last 50 years in the recycling of raw materials, including platinum metals and precious metals in general. Given the scenario described by Daniela before, how do you feel the present moment characterized by dramatic ups and downs in the cost of raw materials? You represent both the producers of raw materials and the jewelers, those who produce jewelry. So how do you view the present situation? Well, we have been listening to data for about 1 hour, coming from the most important credit institute in our country that has an amazing research office that has provided us with very, very interesting insights. Augusto has given an excellent presentation. I have no slides. And so with my natural intelligence, I will try to comment on the data. Yes, but you're the only one with a customized slide. Yes, that's the only slide I have. Sure, but it's very beautiful. It is not little, and we will talk about that later on. So commenting the data we have heard is certainly interesting, but it is very difficult because, as you said, I have the honor to represent an amazing group that actually is part of a very important supply chain, from raw materials to galvanic treatment, finished products, precious and semi-precious items. So we are a unicum, and I'm really proud to be part of this group. So we have to interpret the data that we've seen. It is necessary to understand certain situations. Our industry is extremely variegated. We have the small, medium, large enterprises, specialized based on the product, the channel, the market, the value chain. They're all part of industrial clusters. So it is clear that when I see that the GDP is going to grow in India and China, I start worrying, because who sells to China? Please raise your hand. Maybe you sell indirectly, and the same is true for India, but these are markets that are closed. And they've always been closed. It is not something new. So let's set those markets aside. The sentiment is also varied and depends on your own specific situation. It is clear that the price of gold can be a source of anxiety. The price of gold is the price of our raw material. The gold has broken its previous records for 50 times. This is amazing. So what we thought yesterday, also in the field of hedging, is extremely difficult today. So the price of gold is going up, the turnover is not going up in a similar way. So the added value is decreasing. Customers have got their problems with the high prices and so on and so forth. Amongst the worries of actors in the field, I do not see the worry about the reduction in the circulating capital that significantly affects the price of gold. Price of gold is related to credits, cashing in credits, liquidity problems, credit problems, problems in managing the relationship with banks. Because in our accounts, in most of our accounts, unfortunately, there is a decrease in the different indicators. So you go to the credit institute, you present the study carried out by Sara and Daniela, and you can tell them, look, I am affected by these market trends, so my accounts are not what you expected. What I mean to say is that what we used to plan in the past is totally different from what we have to plan today. Planning is paramount in refining in gold jewelry, but things have changed dramatically. We represent a fabulous industry that, however, is exposed to all these situations. Yesterday, Venezuela, today, Iran, Iraq, the dollar, gold, silver. What about the price of silver? It has gone up by 140%. So the sentiment of those producing silver items is certainly very complex today. Obviously, if we all try to diversify geographically, like Augusto said, geographic diversification cannot be done overnight. You need structures, you need to know the market. The ICE can help us, but it is not as if tomorrow I can decide to go to Azerbaijan or Korea. We sell to Korea with significant returns, but these are markets we have been selling to for years. Take Japan. Japan is a performing country, and it is going on to perform, but it is a very particular market. Not every company of 15, 16 people can go to Japan tomorrow morning. Raw materials. Forget about the price for a moment. Today we have the supply shock. My competence in Kimet and in the metal bank are such that I can tell you that nobody realized the supply shock. There's a lot of demand, but there's no metal. So a certain point is reached when the bank has to go on international markets to buy the coins or whatever is requested by the jewelry maker. This extends the value chain and leads to significant complications. Tramponomics, the Donroe discipline for Greenland, but the Tramponomics or Trump economics is actually upsetting all value chains, which, as you told us before, are now totally shattered. Just in time was the word in the past. So you did not have to have any stocks because you could order what you wanted and get it in 1 year. But we no longer have gold. Therefore, those areas that enjoyed freedom of trade, the geographic freedom, the globalization we used to know, have disappeared. Globalization, which until yesterday was something we were talking about, does not exist anymore. Today, you can win if you have a short, concentrated value chain. Not a nationalized one, but this is what is actually happening. Also for reputation. Yesterday, when buying the metal, we only want metal 9.999. That would guarantee its origin. This is fundamental today, otherwise you cannot work anymore. So complexities are significant. And I would like to add also all these elements. If the President of Jordan has to deliver metal, the metal has to be certified, it must have a proven origin, guaranteed by sure sources, it must be ethical, it mustn't be blood-stained. So it is not the finance that plays a fundamental role, but the certification of origin for the gold that you buy. This did not exist in the past, so complexity is really significant. A more evolved market, also in terms of customers. Customers are more and more attentive. Well, when we talk with our trade forces, I always say, yesterday we used to sell the very same item, I'm talking about raw material, and let's say it had a value of 50 euro per gram. Now the very same product is sold for 127 euro per gram. You know, it's like selling ice to Greenland. The very same product, price has more than doubled. So there must be something different. So you have to provide a better service. And in jewelry, without a service that is incredibly close to the customer, you cannot be successful. You can't think of selling in the same modality as you used to do in the past. Service must be different.
You stated 100 years in your picture. It's not just a logo. It's a storytelling, it's a heritage. You are celebrating your 100 years. And you have just started speaking of that. Now the real celebrations begin, and that happens in a very uncertain and complex period of time. So what is that date for you for Unoaerre? I think that Unoaerre is the best company in the world, and the question is, what do you expect for the future? Well, really, because the company was born twice, and the second time, well, we have to pay tribute to the family, Di Cristina. They were real heroes, and they gave new life to the company. Indeed, 100 years, 1 century, it's indeed a very important achievement. It's wonderful. We went through 2 wars. Well, indeed, the buildings were demolished by the bombs. In the Second World War, the factory was bombed. It used to produce the wedding rings in non-precious metal during the war. Indeed, in a different type of production. It was reborn in 2012. We are very happy, even if that happens in a very difficult period of time, but we are used to that. We are not scared by difficulties. So, all the best. I'd like to talk about something mentioned by the regional minister. That is the circular economy. In your company, you have technologies in the van, in the forefront. I visited KeyMed website. You spoke about fostering the recycling by using the scraps. Indeed, recycling is never easy, not even for glass or for paper. So we have to use chemical, mechanical, metallurgic technologies which are very innovative. Now, the raw materials are a strategic element. Recycling becomes a competitive factor. What do you think? I mean, referring to the Italian value chain, which is the one which has the whole cycle, production of raw materials. Then we have FEMO, the Association of Machinery Associations, and we have top of the range. No other nations have the same quality as well as production. KeyMed, as you said, has been doing circular economy for more than 50 years. The idea is that along the jewelry value chain, nothing is wasted. Everything should be recovered, considering the high value of the raw material, which is much higher than 50 years ago. So KeyMed is circularity by nature, because we regenerating a product by giving it a second life. This is even more important today because of the market situation. As our colleagues here just stated, gold and silver, but gold in particular, is a shelter asset. It has a very high financial component. ETF in commodities, but gold is not only a commodity, it's a reserve for sovereignty. The title of this meeting is extremely good, and the Americans have understood that. because the Chinese before them got started to implement de-dollarization. For that reason, they had to gather, to accumulate gold. The price went up, but the effect was a weakening of the value chain. It's extremely expensive to mine precious metals. For us, it's very difficult to buy gold because of the need to have a certificate of origin. That's why we have a cluster here. Arezzo and Chimet, which is a leading company with 80 tons of gold sold and produced per year. Well, that is a strategic activity for the national sovereignty of the industry. If you are not able to mine gold, just think of this wedding ring, which is 3 grams. That means that I have to mine 1 ton, the majority of which is wasted, is scrapped, with an impact on the environment. 1 ton of rock is discarded and I use 3 grams. So mining is not profitable. Hence, circularity for the jewelry industry and national sovereignty and European sovereignty as well. And the same happens for silver. Well, critical raw materials are also. Well, please, what about South Africa? What's the situation? Well, South Africa is. Well, South Africa is one of the highest producers of platinum and gold. We regenerate and reuse the goods at the end of their life. We extract a very high quantity, which is about 20% of the South African company. As for gold, the percentage is much higher. I don't want to mention it because it's scaring. Why are you not disclosing that? Is it true? Yes, it is true. More than 80%. That is mined in South Africa. So critical metals or precious metals are not bought at the mine. They are bought in refining stages. China has been investing in this technology for 20 years. They bought major shares in Congo and other parts of Africa so that they are processed domestically, where they have very good technologies. So for national sovereignty, it is important to have the technology to extract critical materials, which are key for the technology revolution with hydrogen cells and so on. In Europe, we have hundreds of millions of cars with a catalytic escape or discharge pipe with a number of metals. They will be 300, 400 million in a few years. So the mine is here. So we have to do some global mining to retrieve from goods which are already having them, so that we can regenerate the metals, which are key source. Trump is a crazy man, but he knows what he's doing. He has a different approach. He knows planning and programming very well. Maybe his manners, well, we are not used to him, but he has a strategic approach. And they have a fund with more than 40 billion to buy equipment and companies in the world. Our strategic fund is a few millions. They have billions. That means that they really understood where you have. Beware of Ericsson. Well, we will do that. So, you know, a warning on Arezzo. The province of Arezzo is like Greenland. No, they don't have snow, but they have the materials. That is something which concerns Europe, not only cities. We no longer have good friends, good neighbors, good countries. No, we don't have what was there 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. The supply chain which were ready are no longer there. There has been a change of paradigm in a few years. That means that we should be able to adjust, something that you have already given proof of. It's not over. It's not over. I just said the first 100 years. I would like to change the program. We have Panarese here. Please come up here. My apologies, so that maybe we can give the award. They were very helpful in the inquiry sociology. They provided a high number of copies of the questionnaire to their customers, so I think it's good to award him. Here is Mr. Panarese. Good evening, welcome, thank you very much. Thank you for collaboration. I'd like to ask Luca Benvenuti and Maria Cristina Squarcialupi to start the awarding ceremony. Well, thank you, Mr. Panarese, for your support. That was indeed very useful for our study. This is the plate. You really deserve it. Congratulations. Very good job. A very final question to you, Luca, on the subject of recycling and regeneration. It's good to have companies like Chimid in Italy. Is that good for the companies? Well, as we said earlier, indeed, companies like this is extremely important because the long value supply chain, which was there at the time of globalization, is no longer there. So if you can control the whole supply chain, one which is certified also, gold should be in line with VMA, should be responsible gold, good delivery, so the whole chain should be certified. This is also important for logistics. The logistics for globalization was different, but now is no longer usable. Our group and gold from Italy as a whole, I think we should all review our plans concerning the needs in terms of raw materials and also other alloys. As a matter of fact, the supply chain is shorter. We cannot think of entering markets or serving our best customers if our suppliers are not ready. Well, that means raw material, plating activities, and so on. Everything should be certified. The supply chain, which is fragmented because of Trump's decisions, well, that means that the search for gold should not be finalized or intended for production. We should look for gold which is certified and have other certifications which were not interesting in the past. Then, if we speak about environmental sustainability, this is also an added value, important for this product. Having certifications indeed helps the environment in the future, but also helps the trading activities. If we are supposed to fight with foreign markets, we have to do that using high quality and certified products. We cannot fight proposing products which quality is low and services are not sustainable. Augusto, you're right. You said, the sentiment has changed. Consumers have changed their attitude to fashion also, not only those who spend a lot, but also the new generations. There is a whole generation who is no longer buying products which are not in line with certain criteria. This concerns fashion, but also those who regenerate products. Sustainability in terms of value, circularity also in the full meaning of the term. The microphone. Well, we see that in international markets, unfortunately, there were scandals. We don't speak of them very much. As a matter of fact, magazines like Business of Fashion speak of that, and they state that made in Italy products have changed, and indeed we have to be aware to use words which indeed are ethical and realistically sustainable. You're right. Europe has not many metals or minerals available. We should look for those materials which are sustainable and certified. You mentioned the scandals of products which were certified. Still, scandals happened. Often so, we do some self-damaging as a country. There are indeed situations where there is a gap in the supply chain, and we should pay attention to that. Sustainability should be referred to metal, highly qualified labor, not people hired under the table. I mean, if we have Chinese people producing in Italy, well, Chinese people working in Italy should respect the law. Also, the quality of labor, well, they do similar to the Italian one. Chinese working in Italy are good. And it's not easy to hire Chinese people directly because they are used to work 12 hours a day at weekends. If you frame them and propose a national contract, they get crazy. They are not used to that. These changes have occurred, You cannot regularize Chinese people. The fashion world is crazy because a regular, lawful Chinese worker, Chinese people are used on a salary based on the number of pieces they produce. So it's a completely different world. But thank you very much. Thank you all. See you tomorrow at 2 o'clock with Sara Giusti, Stefano Andres, and Claudio De Nobili. Thank you very no, sorry. Stefano's, please. Well, I also would like to thank Cristina as a chairperson of the Club Degli Orafi. Well, we had the opportunity to speak directly for the first time, speaking about production and retail. Synergies should be, the world of gold is to be united. We have to have a single synergy. We have been able to discuss, to create synergies, and thanks to Elena and Stephen, who really started talking and creating the beginning of the future to run together. I mean, if retail makes mistakes in sales or they are not able to support a sale, this is not only less profit for that seller, it has a negative impact on the whole industry. I'm sure that she will do her best with all her heart. So we undertake the most commitment. Thank you, Cristina, for your work. Thank you.